Are those ashes on your forehead, or do you just have poor hygiene? That may be the question for the day. Mm-hmm. Have you been out and about and seen those with ashes on the forehead?
I have not.
None. No one.
But I'll have my own on this evening.
This is the Ash Wednesday edition of the Ride Home.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. And so at your church, the Ash Wednesday service this evening.
Yes, exactly.
Increasingly popular. Mm-hmm. And ashes will be distributed?
Ashes will be distributed. Or not distributed, they'll be applied.
Applied. Well, distributed in an application.
Yeah, it seems weird. Like we're handing them out, people. Everybody come on up.
I wonder, you'd think that would be like a fashion thing. The world's so weird and twisted. You think that people are going to go, well, yeah, I'm doing my ashes.
Somebody will probably do that at the Met Gala next year.
It's my ashes
I'm
look.
surprised they didn't do it. Remember when they were all mocking the Catholic Church at that?
Yeah.
In that one year?
Right.
That was sweet.
They didn't wear it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, thanks for being with us today. We have an excellent show. We are going to focus, of course, on Ash Wednesday today, and hope that you stay with us for the entirety of the 2 hours. I mean, heck, even if you stick around for 15 minutes, that's okay as well.
That's really, we'll take that.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Coming up on today's program, we'll be talking with Dr. Curt Thompson. He's a psychiatrist in private practice. He's going to talk about Lent, as you said, also about grief and restoration. In the 5 o'clock hour as well, Am I Useless Now? What happens to aging women in the workforce? A big article in Fortune magazine yesterday talks about the crisis of confidence that women are having as they age and figure out what to do with career.
Really? This is not affecting you, is it?
I guess that remains to be seen.
Okay. No one's kicking you under the bus here on the ride home, are they?
There's also a British man who's been found guilty of stealing multiple thousands of Cadbury cream eggs. Mm-hmm. We'll delve more deeply into that. And a couple who broke off their engagement in 1963. Don't hit that button yet.
Oh, that's right.
Right. And
thank you.
60 years later, tied the knot.
Wait, he broke off the engagement. Mm-hmm. And then came around when he was in his 80s. Yep. He woke up.
I said, wait,
I need you. Where have you been all my life?
Exactly.
I need you. All right, very good. All right, that and much more ahead. Okay, so without further ado, let's take a look at the news today. It's a big news day. Apparently, former President Trump is out and about in the neighborhood. Without further ado, here's the top 4 at 4.
For Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023, number 1. As you said, John, the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, that contaminated at least 15,000 pounds of soil and 1.1 million gallons of water has brought to light a cost-cutting strategy in the rail industry. There is a lengthy article in today's Wall Street Journal about this. The strategy, known as precision scheduled railroading, seeks to streamline rail operations by lengthening trains while cutting the workforce. The train that derailed February 3rd was 9,300 feet long. It weighed 18,000 tons and had, how many cars do you think?
30.
150.
What? 150?
150.
Holy smokes. That's a big long
While
line.
all this is going on, between 2011 and 2021, the number of workers at the largest U.S. rail companies decreased by 28%. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Department of Transportation has called on the industry to immediately make several changes, including using technology to improve inspections, while they also replace older tank cars with newer, more secure ones, something rail companies have long resisted and Congress has not prioritized. I said that was from the Wall Street Journal, but I lied because that's really from CBS News.
Stop it.
Number 2. This is from the Wall Street Journal. The number of attacks with gunfire or vandalism on the U.S. power grid infrastructure surged last year and is likely to continue rising this year, according to a confidential analysis that the Wall Street Journal saw.
So guys are showing up and just shooting transformers.
What the heck? Okay, that includes intrusion, vandalism, and gunfire. It jumped by, get ready for it, 71% from 2021. The number of attacks soared last year due to a series of clustered physical attacks in the Southeast, Midwest, and Pacific Northwest. There appears to be, John, some sort of pattern where people are targeting this with the intent to disrupt basic services.
Sure, yeah. Nefarious means.
Right. So they're calling these people domestic terrorists, and they want to tell everyone that these people have developed credible, specific plans to attack the U.S. power grid. Number 3. Nearly 1 million, these numbers are just going to blow your mind. Nearly 1 million people applied for international protection in the European Union last year, according to data that was published today. This is higher than any year since 2015 as far as asylum seekers. 966,000 were made in 27 EU countries, as well as in Norway and Switzerland last year. It's up 50% from the year before. But here's the thing. You're thinking, okay, well, that's all the people from Ukraine.
Yeah.
It doesn't count the 4 million Ukrainian refugees.
What?
Because those people were granted temporary protection in the EU. So they're kind of in a separate category. So it's a whole, it's all of that.
Plus more.
Plus. So it's 1 million people plus the over 4 million from Ukraine.
Heaven help us.
So the Syrians are leading, right? Top nationality of asylum seekers in Europe, followed closely by Afghans, and coming in third, applicants from Turkey. Well, how does Europe possibly make that
absorb
work?
That.
And number 4, Oleato, Starbucks' new line of cold-pressed, extra virgin olive oil-infused coffee beverages.
Hold on.
Yes.
That's an awful lot.
Makes its grand debut in Milan today before the drinks are introduced in select global markets like Southern California later this spring. And that's your top 4.
Wait. Give me that description. Cold-pressed, extra virgin olive oil.
Cold-pressed, extra virgin olive oil infused coffee beverages. Yes, apparently they were inspired by the rich history and origin stories of coffee and olive oil. It's going to yield, as they say, a velvety smooth, rich texture with the buttery round flavors imparted by the olive oil. What do you think?
I think it's a little too much.
You think?
Sometimes when I go into Starbucks and I'll give me this is what I learned, a large dark roast.
Okay.
They look at me like I got 3 heads.
Because that's too plain.
Right. Like we have all this available to us. Sir, and please would you say grande and not large?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
let's just get with the program,
like you're new
sir.
Here.
Right, exactly.
You've only been doing this for 2 decades.
Large dark roast.
These are your options. The Oleato Cafe Latte, which is a blonde espresso roast, smooth and subtly sweet, infused with Partana extra virgin olive oil and steamed with creamy oat milk to create a velvety smooth, deliciously lush latte. Does that sound interesting to you, Lexi?
You got that?
It kind of does, only because I know a lot of people like to put olive oil on ice cream.
Yep.
And so I'm like, well, does it make it good? I think it might make it good.
It probably does.
This is what I promise you right now.
Yeah.
When this debuts in the Pittsburgh area, I'm getting it for all 3 of us, and we're going to sample it.
Taste test.
All right, fine.
Okay.
When it debuts. But it's probably like just in L.A.
It's in Southern California right now.
Of course it is.
I want to try the Oleato Golden Foam Cold Brew.
Just give me a cup of Joe. Just give me some, and not the Folgers.
101.5 WORD. The station with Pittsburgh's favorite Christian music every weekend.
With the best new music. New music from Phil Wickham. This is Our God. First Things First by Consumed by Fire.
First things first.
And That's Enough, Brandon Heath. Celebrating 20 years of bringing Pittsburgh's favorites and the best new music.
101.5 WORD. On the weekend.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 844-47-BIBLE. That's 844-47-BIBLE. 844-47-BIBLE.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, CEO and founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. And in the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. Timeshare is the only thing that you can buy that you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. When you buy a timeshare, you give them a blank check to fill out any amount they want for annual maintenance and assessment fees. The crazy thing is, this never ends. Even when you die, your family's now going to be stuck with this burden. Stop the insanity today. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. 800-626-5252. That's 800-626-5252. 800-626-5252.
Bachman's Roofing and Solar is your local award-winning roofer. Stop waiting. It's time to inspect your roof and protect your home's #1 asset. With no interest and no payment financing for 12 months, Bachman's Roofing is your easy choice for roofing, gutters, and solar. Did you know Bachman's Roofing is one of the #1 GAF solar integrated roofing installers in the USA? Go with Bachman's. Go with solar and install the roof that pays for itself. Call 412-744-8390 or visit bachmansroofing.com.
Of course, it is Ash Wednesday. We turn now to Pastor Josh Brown from Bellefield Presbyterian Church in the Oakland neighborhood here in the city of Pittsburgh. And Josh, always a pleasure to have you with us. Today you want to talk about Lent and repentance.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I apologize for my voice. I know a little raspy today, but I appreciate being on with you.
Yeah, it seems like you and everybody else have that like laryngitis thing going on, Josh. It's okay. So let's talk about repentance on Ash Wednesday. For people who might be from a Protestant background and they think Ash Wednesday, like I don't observe, that's a Catholic thing to do. Or what do you say to that?
Yeah, there is a thought that it is that more Catholic or some of the high liturgical church traditions, like it's exclusive to them, and it need not be that. It really is just a day. It's meant to mark the beginning of the Lenten season, which is the 40 days before Easter. So it's a day that's meant to just be full of some biblical reflection on the fact that we are indeed finite and frail, that we are those who are in need of a Savior. God himself said to us, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. And so it's not meant to be a morbid kind of a reflection, but just to acknowledge the reality of the situation and the fact that in order for us to escape that, something needs to be done on our behalf. So repentance is really that. Repentance is not meant to just be a beating ourselves up and making ourselves feel terrible about things. It's meant to be a turning away from the things that are leading us from God, turning away from any of the idols in our life, turning away from the sin in our life, and turning to Jesus. So that's something that everybody should be doing as a Christian.
Very good. So, Josh, is there a particular way you look at repentance, how you view God and repent to God?
I think so. There's something that I've been reflecting on for a few years. Not consistently, but a few years ago, I read something by a Puritan author, a pastor named Stephen Charnock. And in his writings, he had what I thought was a very helpful distinction. He talked about the difference between repenting at Mt Sinai and repenting at Mount Calvary. And by that, he was saying that Mount Sinai being where God gave the Ten Commandments to Moses, and he was, said that the mountain was covered in thick, dark smoke, and the people were terrified to go up to it, and they were told not to touch it because just the holiness of God and the otherness of God was on display. And his take on that is that there is a time then when we can repent, that is, again, turning away from our sin, turning to God and trusting and resting in him, because we see God as holy, because we see the horror even of our sin, and because, in a sense, it's because we don't want to be judged, right? We see the potential judgment that's coming, and so it's a true and genuine kind of a repentance, but it's a kind of motivation that says, "Wow, I don't want to be on the wrong side of God." Again, a true repentance, a genuine one. That's a motive. And then Charnock would say that repenting in Mount Calvary then is seeing seeing Jesus as the one who has died for us, the one who laid down his life for us, the one who demonstrated God's love for us in that while we were still sinning, he died for us. And he said that kind of repentance is motivated out of just seeing the depths of the love that God has shown to us. So, again, it's a true repentance. It's a genuine repentance, but it's a different kind of a motive. And he said that it's not that one is necessarily better than the other, but it's usually the way that we progress in our spiritual life. Oftentimes, most people will begin by saying, hey, I see, wow, I didn't know I was on the wrong side of things. I need to get right with God. But as you grow and as you grow deeper in your relationship with the Lord, it's a motivation coming more from just love and adoration.
So it's not necessarily an either or. It's more like a both and.
Yeah, I think that it can be. And I don't think that it's necessarily a linear progression. And again, it's not one is right and one is wrong. And there certainly can be some overlap there. But I found it a helpful way to think about in my own life, even at times when there is that recognition of, you know what, this is something that's leading me away from the Lord, and so I need to turn away from it, or this is a time when I need to turn more closely to the Lord, to even just reflect upon why I'm doing that. Again, and it's not as if one of those motivations is better or right or wrong, and the other one's not or something, but to say, am I doing this because I'm just in awe of God's holiness, and I recognize that I'm not right with him, or is it wow, I just look at just what God has done for me. Look at the love that he has shown me. This is just out of gratitude. This is just out of a deep, genuine love for what the Lord has done for me. And it's been an interesting thing just to try to think through some of my own motivations at times.
Josh, I think a lot of people, whenever they first come to Christ and they read the passages about the fear of the Lord, people are either sort of flummoxed by that or just would kind of go, well, why should I fear God? Can you talk about that, about the fear of the Lord and why it's right and true to fear God?
Yeah, you're right. That shows up a lot. It's in the Psalms, it's in Proverbs a lot. It's all over the place. And I think a lot of times you'll hear people say, well, fear there just means reverence or respect. And I think that actually soft pedals it a little bit too much. I think that is an element of it. It is an element of respect, an element of reverence. But there is also just a need to acknowledge the sheer grandeur and even I think we can say power of the Lord. And so sometimes I like to compare it to the way that you ought to think about the ocean. If you are ever at the ocean, if you're down the shore, the beach, you can marvel at the beauty of the water. You can enjoy a sunset or a sunrise over the waves. You can play around in it. You can splash. You can have fun. You can delight in it. But you can never just forget the sheer power that the ocean has.
Yes.
Yep.
And so there is a fear there, not like a terror, not like you're meant to be up at night in a cold sweat, but just to recognize, this is not something that I control. This is not something that I have any authority over myself, and so I can delight in it, and I can enjoy it, and I can marvel at its beauty. But I just can't ever forget what it is. And I think that's the kind of aspect of the fear of the Lord that Scripture is trying to get us to not ever get to the point of presuming that somehow we have authority or control over God, because that's foolish.
Yeah, that's good.
The Reverend Josh Brown is with us from Bellefield Presbyterian Church in the Oakland part of Pittsburgh. Josh, I think it was last week, it might have been the week before, John and I were talking to Cornelius Plantinga on the show about the fear of God. And I mean, that wasn't the subject, but that's kind of what we got around to talking about. And we were talking about the passage where Jesus heals the demoniac and puts the demons in the pigs, and they go off the side of the cliff. And we were talking about the reaction of the people in the city who were like,
what is that?
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Like,
tell Jesus to get out of here.
We tell Jesus to get out of here. And Dr. Plantinga's perspective is that when we really see the power of God, when we really see it, we actually don't want it because it freaks us out. It's way too scary. And I have thought a lot about that simply because we do, I think, so much so in our current culture, soft pedal God so that people know that he's loving and kind. I don't think that's wrong for us to do that. But then I wonder if maybe we mess it up, or we don't portray him accurately. What do you think about that?
I think that's I think he's right on with that. And you're right. When people encounter God in Scripture, You see the way that most of them respond at first, whether it's Moses at the burning bush. There's an aspect of just what in the world is even happening here. Some of the people who encountered Jesus, would say, "Go away from me. I'm a sinful person." When Isaiah was given a vision of the Lord sitting on the throne, he said, "Lord, I'm a sinful man. I dwell in the midst of sinful people." There's that recognition of the first response is, "This is so other than me that I don't even have a category for this. I don't even know what to do with this." And I think it's really when you see that, and then you find out that God loves you personally and intimately, and what that God has done to make you in a right relationship with Him through Jesus. That's where just the wonder of the love comes in. I think you're right. I think in the desire to make God lovable, we can sometimes just forget again. Ecclesiastes 5 says, "God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few." And sometimes that reminder is really important.
Right.
God is love, but that doesn't mean He's just a teddy bear that we manipulate in whatever way we want.
Yeah, and I would imagine, Josh, especially you as a pastor and visiting people on their deathbed, the idea of, for dust you are and to dust you shall return. Some people, and I know this to be true in my own family, some people are terrified on their deathbed, knowing that, they will soon see God, and other people are at peace with that. And I think that, for me, often kind of sums it up. People are terrified because soon and very soon you will be before the Lord of all creation and the universe. There is a good reason to be terrified for that if you really distill down deeply into that. But at the same time, to think about God and your life with God and His acceptance of you and the grace that God gives us, those are two sides of the coin.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And these are the things that are kind of like inversely proportionate, right? The greater you see the holiness of God, the more amazed you will be at what it is that He has done to draw you to Him. I mean, if what God has done for us is just give us sort of like a spiritual Tylenol to deal with our spiritual headache, then that's not really a big deal. Yeah. And you can say thanks, but not that great. But if you see that there's God who spoke the universe into existence, and before whom we stand in open rebellion, is the one who says, "Here's what I have done for you," graciously taken away all of your sins, given you the very righteousness of Christ, so that you can delight in my presence, so that you can call me Father, so that you can know that when you speak, I will listen to you. That's incredible. If we begin with that point of understanding who God is, but if he's just a prepackaged 6-set DVD study guide that we just can feel like we can entirely encapsulate and package in the way we want, then what wonder is there to see what He's done for us? Because we think we've got it figured out anyway.
And so on this day, especially this Ash Wednesday, where people are walking around with the physical manifestation of the dust on their forehead, right? I mean, this is a good reset for us as we are entering into the Lenten season.
I think it is, and it's always important to see it as a part of that season and a part of that story. If Ash Wednesday was the only liturgical day in the Christian year, it would be morbid and a bit macabre, and it would not be comforting or consoling on any level. On the other hand, I would even suggest that if Easter were the only day in the Christian liturgical year, then you would think, well, it's great news to know that Jesus is alive, but why is that the defining event in history? And it's when you put those things together that you see, no, death is real. We are all going to face it someday. It's not something any of us can escape. Acknowledging that is not being morbid or gloomy or anything like that. It's acknowledging it, and yet that's what makes the resurrection such triumphant good news, to say that this thing which faces down all of us has been defeated, and been defeated through what Christ has done for me.
Josh, talk about Ash Wednesday, and do you guys celebrate at the church? And what is that? Or celebrate? Commemorate might be a more appropriate.
Observe.
Yeah, observe. There we go.
Commemorate. We do. Yeah, we have a service this evening at 7 o'clock, and anyone is welcome to attend that. Everyone's welcome to attend that. That'll be happening. We're also going to be live streaming that at 7 o'clock, and then that just begins that Lenten season. And throughout the Lenten season, this is going to be a time when we try to prepare ourselves in different ways for the good news of Easter. Really, as I've already said, if Easter Sunday feels like it just kind of drops in on us out of nowhere, it's good news and it's exciting news. But when you take the time to see why it's such good news and the build up to it and the preparation for it, it makes it that much bigger. So it is part of a larger story that really in many ways begins with this day.
Very good. Josh, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your clarity and for your teaching here. We appreciate your time here with us.
Oh, I always appreciate being on with you guys again. Thanks for putting up with the voice. I don't know if losing my voice is the answer to somebody's prayer out there or not. But
we might never know.
I don't know, but I appreciate you guys putting up with me. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Josh. Bellefield Presbyterian Church, 5th Avenue in Oakland, right across from the Student Towers.
Doing it right. Roofing, siding, and remodeling. The first Owens Corning MVP in Pittsburgh and one of the longest tenured platinum contractors in the Pittsburgh region. Doing it right. Roofing, siding, and remodeling. Call 724-NEW-ROOF. That's 724-NEW-ROOF.
Want it done right, call Doing It Right.
Word FM listeners, in this year radio commercial, I'm going to show you how the famous quote, 2 birds, 1 stone, should actually be 4 birds, 1 stone. I can see you're on the edge of your seat, but let's at least give it a try. It's Ryan from United Faith Mortgage, and what we're seeing from families across the country is how 1 stone, the cash out refinance, is helping families 4 different ways. The cost of everything is currently crazy, which is spiking credit card debt, where interest rates are often 3 to 5 times higher than mortgage interest rates, which is why we're seeing family after family taking advantage of the fact that their home has skyrocketed in value and cashing out that newfound money to pay off the credit card monster, using leftovers on special purchases, setting a bit extra aside for future peace of mind, and the 4th positive is cleaning up debt improves your credit score, giving you better future options. If you're curious what a cash-out refinance would do for you, we are United Faith Mortgage.
United Mortgage Corp, Melville, New York. NMLS number 1330. Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. Mortgage lender license 22672.
This message is for anyone looking for $500,000 to $1 million or more of affordable term life insurance. Even if you have diabetes, high blood pressure, or are taking anxiety meds. Here's an example. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe overweight with type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term life insurance may only cost about $200 a month. We're Term Provider, experts in finding affordable term life insurance for those that may not be in perfect health. If you've had prostate cancer, heart conditions, high cholesterol, or are on prescription medications, you may still qualify for $500,000 to $1 million or more of affordable term life insurance. Get a quick quote right now by visiting termprovider.com. That's termprovider.com, or simply call Term Provider at 800-333-1750. If you're looking for term life insurance but have type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, or have other health issues, call Term Provider at 800-333-1750. That's 800-333-1750.
Roofing, siding, or remodeling?
Want it done right, call Doing It Right.
724-NEW-ROOF.
101.5 WORD-FM Pittsburgh. On your smart speaker by saying, play the word Pittsburgh. And on your phone via the Word FM mobile app, iHeart, TuneIn, and Odyssey.
Thousands of young people are dying from counterfeit prescription drugs laced with lethal doses of fentanyl.
Never take a pill unless it comes from your pharmacist. We lost my 18-year-old son who had a very bright future ahead of him, and it was stolen.
Just one counterfeit pill laced with fentanyl can kill. Visit onepillkilled.org.
onepillkilled.org.
onepillkilled.org to learn more.
Mostly cloudy skies for tonight. It'll be breezy and mild with a couple of showers. Tonight's low 55. Tomorrow, a couple of morning showers, otherwise mostly cloudy, becoming windier and warm. We'll reach a high of 72. Partly cloudy tomorrow night, winds gradually subsiding. It'll be much colder with a low of 30. Friday, breezy with intervals of clouds and sun. We'll reach a high Friday of 36. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm Drew Shannon.
The story in today's paper. About a year ago, a woman by the name of Priscilla Matheny got a Facebook friend request from Ed Scheckenberger.
Not Ed Scheckenberger.
Ed Scheckenberger, that little wily old man. Anyway, Priscilla Matheny Ed Scheckenberger was her first love and her former fiance.
Oh.
But Priscilla Matheny, without hesitation, she hit the delete button. She's 83.
That's cold.
She says, who does he think he is? Matheny recalled thinking, she said, I don't want anything to do with this guy. 60 years prior, Scheckenberger called off their engagement in a letter to her, and she has not spoken to him since.
What?
He broke my heart, said Matheny, who met Scheckenberger in 1959 at a local church in Hagerstown, Maryland, where they both grew up and where she still lives today. Scheckenberger, who's now 85, proposed to Matheny 3 years after they met, and she said yes. Shortly thereafter, though, he reneged on his proposal. At the time, he was a student at WVU.
That could be part of the problem.
Which is a few hours away from Hagerstown, where Matheny was working as a secretary. The couple committed to a long-distance relationship. Although they visited each other frequently, Scheckenberger soon realized that he was not ready for matrimony. He says, everything seemed financially troublesome to me. I was afraid to start a life with somebody else, and I didn't think I had many choices. I had saved up and worked for several years for my college, but was worried about my nest egg for marriage. So Matheny, meanwhile, gets his letter. Of course, she's crushed. She said with vivid clarity she remembers tearing open the letter, assuming it would be another sweet note from her betrothed. But after reading it alone in her bedroom, she turned into a puddle of tears. She then promptly burned the letter, sold her engagement ring, and resolved to move on. 4 months later, she met her soon-to-be husband, Walter Matheny, who was a widower with 2 young children. When they met, they went on to have a son and a daughter together, followed by 4 grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren. All the while, Matheny refrained from even thinking about Scheckenberger, maybe because it hurt so bad, she said. Scheckenberger, on the other hand, he says it took him longer to find love. He said, I was very hurt myself with what had transpired. He was hurt himself.
Yeah, he was hurt by what he did.
He said he focused on his academics rather than romance. He completed his bachelor's degree, went on to earn his master's degree, his doctorate in mechanical engineering, and then he taught at WVU for 36 years. He did get married in 1968 to another academic. They had 3 children, 5 grandchildren. He said, I was very blessed with my wife of 53 years. But when his wife died in October of 2021, he leaned on his 2 sisters for emotional support. And they had this nightly phone call. One of his sisters said during the phone call, hey, remember Priscilla? She was a special lady. And so Scheckenberger said, I got to thinking about that. So I sent a letter to her.
No, he didn't.
I probably hurt her feelings more than I ever wanted.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought he... So, wait.
No, he did.
Oh, he
did.
Yeah. He did. Okay.
He found an avenue for her.
Okay.
She did not respond. So he went on Facebook. And, of course, he didn't know her married name. But he went to the church website, to the church Facebook page, where he saw a woman, Priscilla, who would enthusiastically post. And he said, that has to be her. So he called the church, his childhood church, explained the situation.
Where she still goes.
Yep. Explained the situation. The church secretary said, oh, I'll reach out to her. The church secretary reached out to Priscilla. She said, you tell that rascal I don't want to have anything to do with him. Anyway, he shows up at the church on Sunday morning.
No, he does. No, wait. Is her husband still living?
Her husband had passed away several years earlier. So he shows up at church. Sees her, recognizes her after 60 plus years.
No.
He corners her, apparently. It seems like a little tense. They have lunch together.
After church.
Mm-hmm. Ed says the flames were rekindled.
What?
But then she got a little scared and said, Ed, back off.
Yeah, because I don't trust you, because I remember the letter.
He would not back off. Repeated weekend visits over time.
Showing up at church.
Mm-hmm. 2 years later, they got married again.
No, they didn't.
In the sanctuary. Not, of course, with the same pastor, but it was a small wedding. Just the 2 of them and the pastor. He moved to Hagerstown, back to his old hometown, happily ever after. He says, what does he say here? He hopes that the flame of love will continue on for many, many years. Ed and Priscilla Scheckenberger. He's 83, she's 85.
I love everything about this.
True love, huh?
That is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely
Broke off their
amazing.
engagement in 1963. 60 years later, they tied the knot.
Coming up next, our good friend Ann Kennedy will be with us from upstate New York, Lent and Sin.
101.5 WORD.
The Bible teaches that one day Jesus Christ will return to earth.
Remember, Jesus promised it would occur someday. Remember, he's coming soon. Hope takes the sting out of the present. Life won't be so hard if you live in light of his soon return.
Join us when Chuck Swindoll teaches about the return of Jesus Christ this week on Insight for Living.
Tomorrow morning at 8 on 101.5 WORD.
What if I told you can save a baby's life for just $28? Well, it's true. Preborn is a ministry doing just that with the help of people like you by offering free ultrasound sessions to pregnant girls and women who otherwise might choose to end their pregnancy. We know that pregnant girls and women who can see their babies on ultrasound are far more likely to choose life. Your gift today can save babies' lives. Just $28 can give a mother the chance to see the truth of the baby that is growing inside her. $140 can do this for 5 girls and women. Whether you want to save one baby or 5 or hundreds, that opportunity is just a click or a phone call away. Call 833-850-BABY. That's 833-850-2229. Or you can do it safe and secure online by clicking on the Preborn banner at wordfm.com.
Let's be real. Retirement is expensive, and inflation is making it even harder with the cost of everything going up from pet food to a dozen eggs. Wouldn't it be great if the cost of your health care could go down? Well, Medishare 65 Plus is $99 a month for ages 65 to 74. And for many with Medicare Parts A and B, looking at other options, that's 50% or more saved per month. No gimmicks. It's $99 a month, and you can use any Medicare-approved doctor or facility, and you get 24/7 access to telehealth from the convenience of your home. Better yet, Medishare is a Christian nonprofit organization. It's a community that'll pray for you and encourage you. And since we've cut out the middleman, you get to keep the savings. Call now. You can learn more about Medishare 65 Plus. Here's the number: 833-SHARE-55. That's 833-SHARE-55. 833-SHARE-55.
This spring, join Danny Goki, Jordan Feliz, and Blanca on the Jesus People Tour, heading to your city. Join Danny, Jordan, and Blanca in Moon Township, Pennsylvania at Impact Christian Church on Thursday, March 23rd. That's Moon Township, Pennsylvania on March 23rd. The Jesus People Tour, live in your city. More information at transparentproductions.com.
Lent and Sin. Let me tell you, this is not The View. Okay, just in case you think you might have tuned into the People Magazine edition. Ann Kennedy's back with us. She's a regular guest on our show. We love her. She is the author of Nailed It, 365 Sarcastic Devotionals for Angry and Worn Out People. We'll talk to her about her new substack as well. But Ann, welcome back. How are things?
Oh, great. Doing great. It's the first day of Lent, so we're all happy clappy over here. How are you guys?
Similarly happy clappy. Thank you for asking.
Ann, do you do ashes?
Oh, yes. There's a lot of fighting amongst Anglicans these days about whether or not you should do ashes because the earliest Anglicans apparently didn't do them, and then it was, recovered in the 70s, which is a bad time to recover things. So every year we have a big fight about whether or not we should do ashes. And as I think I said this morning, you can take my ashes if you come over here and pry them out of my cold, dead hands. So we do ashes.
Mm-hmm. Committed to ashes. I like ashes myself. I do like ashes. I like to be out and about and see people with ashes on their forehead. I don't know why I like that. It's just I go, oh, look at that guy, right?
It's the anti-virtue signal because you're admitting publicly that you're going to die because you're a sinner. It's a wonderful countercultural kind of thing, and I think it fits really well with today, where there are not a lot of public ways to say that you're bad and that you're going to die and that God is God. There aren't a lot of ways to do that with some subtlety. So I really like them. I think they're very relevant as a Christian option.
And what about Protestants who are listening to this and think, you know what, I've never done that. My church tradition doesn't include that. I don't get it. It seems like Catholic to me. I heard that twice today already.
Really?
That seems so Catholic to me. What do you say about, what would you tell that person?
Well, not everything that people do in other kinds of churches are necessarily bad. So if a Catholic does something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do it. I mean, Catholics pray and go to church, and you should also do that if you're a Protestant. Yes. But I do think that that sign of ash is a sort of, it's not something you have to argue over like communion. What is the meaning of the body and the bread and the wine? The sign of ash is uniformly a sign that points to the sinfulness of the human and your forthcoming death, which is a universal sign for Christians. That's something that we all acknowledge is going to happen. And so it's actually, I think, a point of possible unity between people who would have maybe not a lot to agree on, to say, well, yeah, you can have your forehead marked with the sign of the cross, which is also the sign of Jesus for everyone, and then the ash says it's a mark of repentance. So, I mean, if you're against that, then we have big problems.
Right. Yeah, I agree, Ann. I love the idea of seeing it, as a mark of a sinner. I mean, you, of course, in popular culture, you see people wearing a cross, right? I mean, and the cross has become sort of a piece of jewelry. I mean, people wear crosses; it's just ubiquitous. You also see, now this is weird. You see now people, with. For better or worse, with face tattoos. Right, with a cross face tattoo, which is a whole other.
You see people with that?
Yeah, haven't you seen that in popular culture?
Well, I've seen a couple people. I don't know is that like sweeping the nation?
I'm not saying it's sweeping the nation, but I mean, if I show up with one, maybe it would sweep the nation. Right. No, but you know what I'm saying? Right. You do see that. I mean, that to me is also kind of like a cultural thing. It's a secular thing that people are like, they're taking something that's holy and making it sort of, they water it down. But I think the ashes, you'd be hard pressed to water down ashes.
Yeah, you can't. You are saying something visceral. It is. I am always really moved when we are in church and parents are taking their babies forward and having the sign of the cross in ash on the forehead of the baby. Wow. And of course, the baby isn't paying attention, but the parent is saying, I understand that I'm going to die and my child is going to die. And so how am I going to go home today? What am I going to do? How am I going to live today? Am I going to trust in Jesus or I'm going to yell more? What am I going to do? And it's an interesting, very quiet check. Protestants like to have checks in their spirit, Yeah. I feel like this is a visual sign that does that, for me anyway. And it often catches me off guard. I'm late to church. I'm yelling at my kids. And then suddenly the pastor says, unto dust you shall return. And I am caught off guard. And we need every Christian needs that constantly, because it just shockingly reorients you towards the truth, which we all say we want. But in reality, it's harder to want it day by day.
Ann Kennedy is with us. She's the author of Nailed It, 365 Sarcastic Devotionals for Angry and Worn Out People. And let's talk about your Lenten resolution, which includes a new substack.
Yes, I'd love to talk about how what is everybody else doing for Lent? I decided I would start a substack so that people could get me delivered to their email boxes if they gave up social media because of Jesus. I think I've been thinking about Substack for a long time. It seems like a sort of an interesting, fun platform. I don't go in for fads. but I had read so much about being able to relate to readers and so on more directly and kind of get away from the relentless algorithm, which is soul-crushing for those people who are on social media. And I don't like being on social media, but like the whole world, I'm stuck there because people I really like and want to follow and read are there. So I thought I would try this out and see if it got me off of the loop. And I'm happy to report that on the first day of Lent, I spent a lot of time checking my stats because I got a lot of subscribers today and yesterday. So
good.
It's going great.
So, and is Substack, is it a blog? I mean, people, this is just another avenue, right, for people to connect. Can you describe what Substack is?
It's really for people who are very important and grand. A lot of journalists are going there who are disenfranchised and not able to say what they really believe, or their journalism, they can't find people to publish their pieces, and so they can go and monetize their work if they want, or they don't have to. And so there's some huge names over on Substack, but it's a very simple platform. I found it was very easy to use in the first day, and there are a lot of small potato people there like me, and it's very clean looking, and it is a newsletter kind of thing. So people sign up and you can get the posts delivered to your inbox, or you can just search in the old way for them, as in old, like, since Facebook old.
Right.
So it's kind of seems like a combination between like old blogger platforms that were kind of simple to look at. And nice looking sites like Medium maybe, but it gives you direct, you just go straight to the person you want to read, and then you go away and you don't have to scroll and scroll and scroll.
Good.
So,
and the thing I like about Substack, there's several things, but one of the primary things as a reader is that there is a comment section, so you can interact with those who are like-minded, right? And people aren't coconuts because they're there because they love the people for the most part.
Yeah, the comment thing that used to be a big part of blogging in the old days, and it got destroyed by social media.
Yes,
because
it sure did.
Even when you comment under the link, but then it's just kind of horrible, and so the comments look like you can comment easily, and the person who's writing can hide certain posts or paywall, so that it doesn't have to become a dumpster fire of people who come in just to be mean. And it gives a little bit of protection, which I think sadly is something that is needed if you're going to enjoy reading and writing both. It's good to have a little bit of boundaries here and there.
I'm into that. Okay, so if people want to find you on Substack, and what do they do?
I think they go to Substack, and I've called myself Demotivations with Anne, and I think if you type that in, you should be able to find me. And I think if you push something, I'll be delivered to your email. And I'm all free right now, and if I paywall anything, it's going to be really cheap. I just want to afford, oil, coffee, or whatever.
Yeah. And I want you to afford that.
Extra virgin oil. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Demotivations with Anne Substack. I just typed that in, and there it was. So
terrific.
Fabulous.
There it was. Awesome.
Excellent.
Very cool.
All right, that's Ann Kennedy. That's how you can connect with her. Also look at her book, Nailed It, 365 Sarcastic Devotionals for Angry and Worn Out People, which might be you.
Very nice. Anne, thank you for joining us today to talk about sin and Lent. Very good. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Do you remember what was kept in a spring house? If you're an old timer, you know that a spring house was used for storing fresh, cold milk. In 84, Pennsylvania, we have another kind of spring house. Our spring house is an old-fashioned country store filled with all kinds of old-time gifts, great country foods, and you guessed it, fresh, cold milk. You see, the Spring House in 84 is also a dairy farm where we milk our own cows, pasteurize and homogenize the milk, and sell it all through the store. We've had people tell us it has to be some special kind of gourmet milk. We don't add anything to the cow's diet or to the milk. It's just nature's purest, most perfect food, and we love the way our customers love it. We also make a chocolate milk you would think is a chocolate shake, an old-fashioned buttermilk that people drive miles to get, and a 40% heavy cream that's wonderful for luscious desserts. Our 2% and our skim are the greatest sellers. Come and try some Springhouse milk at the Springhouse in 84.
Eric was way behind on his taxes.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS, almost $15,000. I tried to make payments.
The IRS wasn't satisfied with Eric's efforts, so they came after him full force.
They're coming to put a lien and a hold on all my income, my home, my car. I was just overwhelmed at what to do.
Then Eric called Optima Tax Relief.
When Optima Tax got involved, the calls would stop, the threats would stop. It was easy like 1, 2, 3.
Optima Tax Relief is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, and their team of expert tax professionals took care of Eric's problem.
I owe $15,000, and now my debt is clean. I don't owe anything.
Take Eric's advice.
If you have a tax problem, you need to call Optima Tax now.
Call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
We're entering a time of increasing hostility against people of faith, a time when Christians are going to be tested on a moral and physical and financial basis, unlike any other time in our lifetime. I'm Lance Wallnau, Christian author, evangelical leader, here to remind you that you have to take action to protect and steward what God has given you. For example, record high inflation is going to continue to eat away at the dollar, and the savings of your retirement account is in danger. Fortunately, God does provide a way. To protect your retirement, I recommend diversifying your 401k or IRA out of paper and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Now, to see how it works, just text the word FAITH to 989898. That'll give you access to a free info kit on gold IRAs. There are no strings attached, so text FAITH, F-A-I-T-H, to 989898 right now, and I pray your family is blessed with peace of mind because you took action.
In February of 1980, I was in 6th grade. Not a hockey fan. I had gone to hockey games because the Pens were bad at that point.
Get free
and
tickets.
My dad would get free tickets. Yeah. And so we'd go, the Pens were blue and white then. Mm-hmm. And we'd go and we'd sit there with, 6, 7 other people.
You know what was going on.
Watch the Pens play. Hockey wasn't, a big thing for me. But the Olympics were a big thing for me. Mm-hmm. My parents were big Olympic viewers. The Olympics were just a much bigger thing then than they are now because we have our attention diverted to,
multiple
1,000
streams.
different stations and streams and all of that is available to us. So at that point, the Olympics really focused people every 4 years. Plus, at that point, the Winter Olympics and the Summer Olympics were in the same year.
Yeah.
Right? So the Olympiad was a big deal. Anyway, this day in history, February 22nd of 1980, probably one of the biggest days in U.S. Olympic history.
Mm-hmm. It was the Miracle on Ice, right? This was when a band of sort of young college kids, essentially, beat the Russian Federation pro team for the gold medal. I mean, I remember watching that game.
Do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was shocking. I mean, it was unbelievably shocking. I liked hockey. I don't know, I'm sure I followed that team, but I remember I was in college at the time. You were in 6th grade.
Yeah.
In college with a couple of guys, we're sitting around watching that game. I'm just blown out of the water.
So I think that they had to go. Didn't they have to go on and play someone else? I don't think that was the gold medal game.
I thought it was.
I think that might have been I think they had to play Finland.
Right, that's right. And
I think they go on.
They lost.
No, U.S. won because they won the gold medal. But I don't think it was.
Okay.
I don't think it was the Soviet game.
Interesting.
But I look back on it and I think First of all, the movie, Miracle.
Miracle on Ice.
Right?
Yeah, Miracle.
Just Miracle. And I think of, Al Michaels.
Can you believe Al Michaels is still broadcasting?
So that was his first real high profile thing, right? Do you believe in miracles?
Yeah. Do you believe in miracles? That's fabulous. Yeah, all those guys. Who was the coach?
Herb Brooks.
Yeah, Herb Brooks has been gone now for 20 years probably. And none of those guys on the team really ascended to any sort of pro career.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I'm not a pro. I don't know about that. But I certainly...
I mean, and it's kind of funny because you look at politics, geopolitics today, world politics, it's sort of the same thing. I mean, the Cold War was winding down. It is a lot the same thing. But it was kind of like David and Goliath in a way. Certainly the Olympics have changed since then. We'll never see college kids representing.
We've all changed since then.
Yeah.
Right? None of us look at the Olympics the same way.
No, we sure don't. No. It was primarily then an amateur sport, right? No matter what your sport was, but it's certainly not that way now.
This day in history, 1980.
Listen on your smart speaker at wordfm.com, the Word FM app, iHeart, TuneIn, and on Odyssey. In your car or at home, too, at 101.5 WORD-FM, Pittsburgh.com.
With SRN News, I'm John Scott. A third Republican has entered the race for the GOP presidential nomination. Vivek Ramaswamy is a biotech entrepreneur, investor, and author of Woke Incorporated. In announcing his candidacy in a newly released video, Ramaswamy declared, "We're in the middle of a national identity crisis.
Faith, patriotism, and hard work have disappeared, only to be replaced by new secular religions like COVIDism, climatism, and gender ideology."
Ramaswamy, the third GOP presidential candidate, along with Nikki Haley and former President Donald Trump. Russian President Putin has hosted China's senior foreign policy official at the Kremlin. And those meetings showed the strengthening of Russia's relationship with China. On Wall Street, the Dow is down 92 points, but the NASDAQ is up 21. This is SRN News.
You've spent your entire working life paying into it, so don't you want to get the most out of Social Security, squeezing it for all it's worth? Hi, this is Ethan Lane with Accurate Solutions Group. Our team can help show you ways to do that with our free Social Security report. It's a great first step to learn how your benefits can play a role in your overall retirement income plan, especially because the Social Security Administration can't give you advice. It's different for everyone, and there are a lot of factors that go into knowing exactly how to maximize your benefits, but based on the decision you make, you could end up with tens of thousands of extra dollars in retirement simply by being informed. Get this free Social Security report from Accurate Solutions Group by texting the word security to 412-515-3555. That's security to 412-515-3555. Investment advisory services offered through ASG Investment Management, LLC. Firm offers insurance services and is not affiliated with the U.S. government.
It's time to think about your tax refund. And Jackson Hewitt wants you to think biggest. As in, we guarantee you'll get your biggest refund or your money back plus $100. Who offers that? Come to think of it, nobody. It's one of the biggest guarantees out there and why you can't just file with anybody. For your guaranteed biggest refund, go to Jackson Hewitt today. Your wallet will thank you. When every dollar matters, it matters who does your taxes.
Bachman's Roofing and Solar is your local award-winning roofer. Stop waiting. It's time to inspect your roof and protect your home's #1 asset. With no interest and no payment financing for 12 months, Bachman's Roofing is your easy choice for roofing, gutters, and solar. Did you know Bachman's Roofing is one of the #1 GAF solar integrated roofing installers in the USA? Go with Bachman's. Go with solar and install the roof that pays for itself. Call 412-744-8390 or visit bachmansroofing.com.
Is your school a true partner in your child's education? They should be. Pittsburgh's Christian schools agree. If you're looking for a safe environment where kids can learn, challenge, and grow with highly qualified teachers who are not only caring but accessible, where academic excellence goes hand in hand with character development, consider Christian education. Right now, local Christian schools are offering half-price tuitions for first-time enrollees, like Walnut Grove Christian School in West Mifflin. Visit wordfm.com/tuitions.
From the creators of I Can Only Imagine comes Jesus Revolution.
If you look a little deeper, if you look with love, you'll see an entire generation searching for all the right things, just in all the wrong places.
Based on a true revolution.
You're going to need a bigger church.
Jesus Revolution. Rated PG-13. Some material may be inappropriate for children under 13. See it early February 22nd. In theaters everywhere beginning February 24th. Go to JesusRevolution.movie.
Mostly cloudy skies for tonight. It'll be breezy and mild with a couple of showers. Tonight's low 55. Tomorrow, a couple of morning showers, otherwise mostly cloudy, becoming windier and warm. We'll reach a high of 72. Partly cloudy tomorrow night, winds gradually subsiding. It'll be much colder with a low of 30. Friday, breezy with intervals of clouds and sun. We'll reach a high Friday of 36. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm Drew Shannon.
Welcome to another edition of The Ride Home with John and Kathy, live from the Salem-Pittsburgh studios. And now here are your hosts, John Hall and Kathy Emmons.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for coming along. The 5 o'clock hour, the Wednesday edition, the Ash Wednesday edition of The Ride Home. Sexual abuse within the church should never, ever be tolerated. Of course, we've been witness to that and to the repercussions in the state of Pennsylvania. First with the Catholics, how many years ago? 7 years ago, probably?
When the report came out.
Yep,
yeah.
The grand jury report. And of course, no denomination is immune from sexual abuse within their ranks.
No, we have talked about it in non-denominational churches. We've talked about it in Amish and Mennonite communities. We've talked about it in Southern Baptists. And that brings us to the news of the day.
It does. So for years, Southern Baptist leaders have told members of the nation's largest Protestant denomination that they are setting up a database to track abusive pastors. They said, we can't do this. It's just impossible.
Now, let me break in and say one of the reasons they say that's impossible, since Southern Baptist churches are not big around here, is that the Southern Baptist denomination is loose, which means that you're affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention, but all of the things that go into governing your church are in the hands of the people at the local church.
I see.
So it's different than other denominations, which exert some top-down authority. Right. They're just, it's not like that. So because of this type of loose affiliational structure, that is why the leaders insist that it's been so difficult to do.
Okay, well, thank you for this, because now, as the SB Southern Baptists have said this is impossible, it seems that the impossible is now closer to reality. We see this in today's Washington Post, that Charleston, South Carolina pastor Marshall Bullock, who is the chair of the Southern Baptist Task Force charged with implementing reforms to deal with sexual abuse, announced on Monday of this week that the Southern Baptists have hired someone called the Guideposts, the Guidepost Solutions. And these are people who are in the business of tracking, categorizing sexual abuse situations across.
So they know what they're doing.
They surely do. Announcement was made during a regular meeting of the SBC's National Base Executive Council. The database, which is known as the Ministry Check website, will include names of pastors, denominational workers, ministry employees, and volunteers who have been credibly accused of sexual abuse. Now, according to the task force, being credibly accused means having confessed, having been convicted of abuse, or having incurred a civil judgment for abuse. It would also include having been investigated by a qualified independent third-party investigating firm. They said they looked at 18 different organizations, and Guidepost has stood out because they worked apparently on major abuse investigations for the SBC in the past. Now, this comes with controversy because apparently Guideposts themselves, the organization, several members have tweeted or Facebook post or some form of social media in support of LGBTQ causes. So because of that...
well, you're not hiring them for that.
Because of that, there's been great blowback from members in the other executive branches about this, saying this is heresy. Why should members of the SBC, especially people in the pews, give money to an organization that we're now tasking to investigate us when they are supporting LGBTQ causes?
Because LGBTQ causes don't have anything to do with what you're hiring them to do. Are you going to quiz your plumber on what his views on LGBTQ rights are?
Yeah, well, on social media, they say this is madness. We are prepared to explain to the members of your church that their offerings will be going to a proud ally of those committed to, quote, sexual perversion in our society.
Listen, they should not be pointing the fingers at someone else's sexual perversion.
Clean your own house first and foremost before you go there, right?
There are a variety of instances in Southern Baptist churches where abusive pastors went on to other Southern Baptist churches to abuse other people, which is why this database is so necessary. Now, we know that also happened in Catholic churches. I'm sure that that's happened in a lot of different denominations, and that's why an organization that tracks people is so essential.
Sure is.
It's so absolutely essential.
You're accountable.
Right. Now, while we're talking about the Southern Baptist Convention, John, more news from them today. Really? They have kicked Saddleback Church out of the denomination.
Wait, Rick Warren's church?
Yes. So Rick Warren is the author of 40 Days of Purpose, which came out probably 20 plus years ago.
How many millions of copies did that book
I
sell?
have no idea, but it's
millions and
a
millions.
lot.
The Purpose-Driven Life.
Right. Oh, you're right. The Purpose-Driven Life.
Yeah.
What did I say? 40 Days of Purpose. I think that was the program that went along with the book.
A lot of different programs.
Right. Rick Warren has been at Saddleback since its founding. He's the founding pastor.
But no longer the pastor.
No longer the pastor. He retired maybe 2 years ago, I think. And two people took his place, a husband and wife team who came to be their pastor. Stacy Wood and Andy Wood are the two people who came to be the co-pastors at Saddleback Church.
And the problem
is that Stacy Wood is a woman.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Wait, but they knew this.
Yes, they knew it going in. So Saddleback.
There's a woman.
Yes, Saddleback knew that they were going to be tossed over it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, they knew they were going to be tossed over it.
From the Southern Baptist.
Right.
Okay, but as you said at the start of this conversation, it's in some ways neither here nor there because of the independent of churches within the SBC.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it matters as far as what your affiliation is. It just, when something goes down that needs a judicial force behind it, the SBC doesn't have that.
I see.
Whereas a Presbyterian church would have that because of the hierarchical structure that's set up there. I think the Methodist Church would be the same way. Anyway, so Saddleback Church is no longer affiliated with the Southern Baptist Convention. The executive committee voted to oust its second largest congregation for having a woman pastor.
I'm sure. Yeah. What's the first largest?
That's what it was. That's a good question.
Do you know, have you ever listened to any preaching from Saddleback post Rick Warren? I wonder what that's like. I'd be very curious about that.
No. 5 churches were ousted at the same time as Saddleback, all for the same reason.
Church politics, that's a rough business, isn't it?
It's draining, don't you think?
Well, especially if you're part of it. Right. Yeah, of course it is. It draws you further and further away, right?
Right.
From the Lord, which is why we're all together in the first place.
Can I read something that the comments that were made from Saddleback to the Associated Press today?
Oh, yeah. Saddleback responded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Reverend Wood said, quote, that the Bible teaches that men and women were given spiritual gifts by God. He and his wife serve as teaching pastors at Saddleback. He says, quote, the church should be a place where both men and women can exercise those spiritual gifts. My wife has the spiritual gift of teaching, and she's really good. People often tell me she's better than me when it comes to preaching, and I'm really glad to hear it.
Excellent.
The executive committee voted to oust 5 of their congregations, 4 over the issue of women as pastors, and 1, so forgive me for misspeaking a few minutes ago, 1 was ousted over the issue of sexual abuse.
Okay, fine. Interesting. Is that an issue for you?
Women pastors?
Yeah.
No.
Nor I.
Okay.
I mean, how many times you...
It's a big deal. I mean,
You've
I
heard women
think
speak to the
I
point
think
and go, "Man."
I respect people on various sides of the debate for sure.
Of course, but is it a deal breaker for me?
I don't think it's a deal breaker.
Women can be just as strong in the word as men. I don't think it's an issue of sexuality or somehow a woman being less than a man in their preaching capabilities. All right, we'll dispense with the Southern Baptist Convention.
We will. We'll go back to talking about Lent because it starts today. It's Ash Wednesday, John.
Okay, we were talking Lent and Sin earlier. Next up, Lent and Grief.
Wow!
It's the ride home.
101.5 WORD.
Dr. Charles Stanley.
As long as we keep our heart clean and our spirit right and our forgiveness flowing in the other direction, no matter what happens, there is a peace and a joy you cannot even explain.
Hear the series Landmines in the Path of the Believer this week on In Touch, the teaching ministry of Dr. Charles Stanley.
Tomorrow morning at 8:30 on 101.5 WORD.
Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength of the issuing insurer. If you're over 50 and thinking about retirement, it's vital that you have a protected income flow you can rely on. Not so easy these days. That's why you need the book that could help protect your retirement future. The book, Guarantee Your Retirement, from financial leader JDM Financial, takes all the mystery out of ways an annuity strategy can help safeguard your retirement with their step-by-step method for boosting your retirement income as much as 40%. And today, the book is yours free. Ready to help recession-proof your retirement? This free book can be a roadmap to helping you avoid the uncertainties of the economy that could make your retirement dreams fade. Don't risk losing some of what you've worked a lifetime for. For your free copy of Guarantee Your Retirement from JDM Financial, call now. Call 800-337-8051. That's 800-337-8051. 800-337-8051.
What if I told you can save a baby's life for just $28? Well, it's true. Preborn is a ministry doing just that with the help of people like you by offering free ultrasound sessions to pregnant girls and women who otherwise might choose to end their pregnancy. We know that pregnant girls and women who can see their babies on ultrasound are far more likely to choose life. Your gift today can save babies' lives. Just $28 can give a mother the chance to see the truth of the baby that is growing inside her. $140 can do this for 5 girls and women. Whether you want to save one baby or 5 or hundreds, that opportunity is just a click or a phone call away. Call 833-850-BABY. That's 833-850-2229. Or you can do it safe and secure online by clicking on the Preborn banner at wordfm.com.
America is giving away its inventions and technology to China.
The Chinese Communist Party intends to surpass us and to be the world leader in innovative technology.
The shocking new movie, Innovation Race, exposes the potential Chinese takeover of 5G and the internet, threatening America's economic and military security.
Dominating technology means you dominate the world itself.
Watch the movie Innovation Race now on demand or DVD at salemnow.com. salemnow.com.
Remember, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Curt Thompson's back with us again. He's been with the guest of our show over the many years. He is a psychiatrist in private practice in Falls Church, Virginia, author of The Soul of Shame, retelling the stories we believe about ourselves. His latest, The Soul of Desire, discovering the neuroscience of longing, beauty, and community. And Curt, welcome back. Today, Ash Wednesday, you're here to talk to us about Lent and grief.
I am. John and Kathy, great to be with you.
Always good. Always a pleasure to see you.
So from your perspective as a therapist, talk to us about what Lent has to offer. That might seem like a consumeristic viewpoint, but I think for people who aren't familiar with Lent, maybe that might be a good place to start.
Sure. Lent, as many of our listeners may be familiar with, is this roughly 40-day period that leads up to Easter, in which, in some way, shape, or form, the participants are choosing to often give something up, choosing to pay attention to parts of their lives that they want to be very different and change and so forth. But the whole notion is that we're really drawing our attention to parts of our lives that we wish were different. And in this regard, it is also a testimony to the fact that in order for the parts of me that I want to give up, whether that be my sin or my brokenness, my addictions, my overindulgences, whatever these things are, that it takes a long time for me to get there. One of the things that we recognize about the Christian calendar is Christmas happens in a day. Now, there is a Christmas season, but the actual day of Jesus' birth, we celebrate it in a day. Easter is a day that we celebrate in a day. Easter happens in a moment. Lent takes 40 days to get through. It is often, in church history, it recognizes the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness immediately following his baptism as he was preparing for his ministry. And in so doing, we believe that Jesus was allowing the Spirit to sift his soul, allowing the Spirit to really bring to his attention what were the things if I'm Jesus, what are the things about me that I'm going to have to contend with? I'm not just contending with the Satan. I'm also having to learn how to contend with the parts of me that I don't want to get in the way of the ministry that I'm about to enter into. And so for us, we see Lent as a way for us to do an inventory of the parts of our lives that we really want to be different. And it's also ironic that it takes such a long time for us to practice doing that, let alone, create and complete the list of all the things we wish were different.
I often find, Curt, that in years past, if I have denied myself something and go through those 40 days, whenever, you're released from that denial, there's, the sort of internal celebration. And then I quickly, what I would say, within a matter of days or a week, go back into those same things that, I was trying to put the gate around in the first place, which to me is, it defeats me tremendously because I'm aware of it. But, nice effort, but it was only for a short season.
Right. Well, one of the things that this points to, I think, is that, for many people, this is a season in which we want to take seriously those parts of our lives, as we mentioned, that we want to be different. In many respects, when people come into our offices, for whatever reason, for their anxiety and their depression and their trauma and so forth, there are so many things about their lives, whether it's the way they think or the way they behave or the way that they try to regulate their emotional states, that they wish were different. And so often, we are a culture that is pretty committed to being able to thinking our way out of the bag, as it were. I should be able to be smart enough to just name what the problem is. Here are the 3 steps to solving the problem, and then I should be able to do it. And of course, this is belied in our lives because my life doesn't actually work like that. And we come to find out that it's not difficult for us to name what are the circumstances that need to change, what are the behaviors I need to change, what is the sin in my life that needs to change. What is more difficult is what often is associated with that sin. And this sin, this behavior, this attitude, this posture that I have in which I'm choosing to do something to cope with this trauma internally, this felt sense of longing that I have, that I feel like I'm not going to receive, I'm not going to get it. And so I choose something else as a way to cope. This is just a continual reenactment, trillions of times every day by everybody on the planet. It's just a reenactment of the 3rd page of the Bible, where the first couple are choosing, we're going to do things our way, or we are going to trust God. We are going to take from the tree of good and evil in order for me to know on my terms, or I'm going to wait to receive that same wisdom from God, but to receive it on his terms and to grow up in such a way that I mature, as opposed to taking things prematurely and then creating all kinds of problems in the wake of that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, wait, hold on. Wait, I'm going to break in for a minute.
Yeah.
Boy, that's really interesting. I'd never thought about that before. So instead, I don't know, is that is that just taking a moment to realize that we tend to jump? We don't want the restrictions that God gives us, or we don't want the timing that God gives us, or we don't want the particular blessings that God gives us. We want different ones, or we want it sooner. Or
right. And yes, all of those. And I would say it's not just because, God offers me these wonderful things and I want something just on my timetable. It's also important to remember that story that we read about on the third page of the Bible, this third chapter of Genesis, is a story in which the man and the woman did sustain there's a particular kind of wound that they undergo when the snake is telling them this narrative that essentially says to them, at the end of the day, you're not nearly as important to God as you think you are. This is part of the subtle message that there is a wound that they don't address directly. There's a wound, and instead of being curious about the wound and saying, wait a minute, we're going to wait until God comes along for his daily walk, and we're going to talk with him about this. Instead, we're going to cope quickly by taking from the fruit as a way to cope with this longing that I have internally to be loved, to this longing to know that I know that I know, this longing to be wise, this longing to be okay in the world so that I can rule in the way that God said that we're supposed to rule. But it's a matter of me taking on my terms and my timetable as a way to cope with my wound rather than continuing to wait for God's timetable. And in the taking, I then create more trouble. I create more wounding. And then I have to do more taking to create so I can cope with that wounding. And you just turn one more page, and now you have one brother murdering another brother. And so we find that underneath all of this taking is an ocean of grief. This grief that the Bible talks about repeatedly. When we read about David and his sense of what has happened when he takes seriously when Nathan comes to him, he has to confront what's happened with Bathsheba. David is grief-stricken. He tears his clothes. I have sinned against the Lord. There is a grief that we must get to. It is a neuroaffective state that we have to access if my sin is ultimately going to be something that I deal with and address effectively in real time and space. We get a picture of this. We talk a little bit about this in this article that I just posted. We get a picture of this in these two sister representations in John 11. I often tell people, I think in the New Testament, Martha often gets a bad rap.
Yeah, sure.
And yet we have to remember that the Gospel of John, the author of the Gospel of John, is brilliant in that he's not just telling us a story of two sisters and how one always gets it right and one doesn't ever get it right. Mm-hmm. He's also actually painting a picture of what it's like for each of us to have a part of me that really just wants to get things done and a part of me that is able to grieve, but while I'm grieving, I don't think anything's going to get done. Mm. And we see that how when Lazarus dies in John 11 and Martha comes to Jesus, she says, I know that if you had only been here, my brother wouldn't have died. And, and then she said, but even so, I know that you can do something. And you sense Jesus, like he's like, oh my gosh, like she is so on the precipice. And he says, even now your brother will live. And somehow there's something about that has her making a right angle turn into this kind of conversation about the theology of the resurrection. We leave her grief, and now we're talking about solving the problem of Lazarus at the end of time.
Yeah.
We switch to Mary, whom, by the way, Martha goes and says to her, the master is calling for you. And this is one of the other things that John is so brilliantly helping us to recognize, that Jesus is calling for our grief. He's calling for it. We live as if somehow we have to get our grief packaged and wrapped so that it isn't something that Jesus has to worry about or deal with. And what the text is telling us is that if I don't put my finger on the grief, if I don't name the grief, if I'm not living in the grief in Jesus' presence, resurrection will be hard to come by. Because what do we see happen? Mary shows up and she says, the opening statement is the same as her sister Martha's. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Same exact words, but the conversation is completely different because there is now no conversation. She just continues to weep. And this moves him. And then he says, where have they laid him? And what we see is that her accessing her grief in his presence is what moves him to the next step. And when he does, he sees the stone and says, roll it away. And of course, this is while he himself is also weeping. Many of us have a really difficult time imagining Jesus weeping with us because first and foremost, we're more like, there's the parts of me that are more like Martha, that don't identify my grief, don't go there. I'm assuming that Jesus needs me to have it all theologically like prepped and ready. But the reality is that he really wants to be in touch with that in order for him then to bring life. And he can't bring life until he can get to the places that are actually dead. And when he gets there, Martha, who now shows up back on the scene, protests one last time. He's been dead 4 days. And how many of us have a hard time imagining that Jesus wants to go into those places where things have been dead, not just for 4 days, but for 4 decades? Our marriages, our relationship with our children, our family histories, our friendships, our medical conditions, our unemployment, all the things over which we have great grief, our sin, not the least. And so he is able to speak into the dead man's tomb because first the grief has been brought to the surface and laid out in the open. It is that grief that he joins. And this is why community is so important, that when it comes to naming our sin, I don't just want to confess what it is that I have done. I need to be able to access the actual anguish that I feel that's related to it in order for me to know that Jesus is willing and able to go into that space with me and is unafraid of it, because his job is to bring me also out of the tomb. And it is in this space that we talk about our confessional communities, and to our listeners, I would want to ask, who are the people in our lives who are coming to our tombs and saying, roll the stone away. We're coming for what's inside. And we're not leaving until it's alive. But it takes a long time for us to get there, which is why Lent takes 40 days. This work isn't done overnight. But Jesus is not going to finish until it is complete.
It's Dr. Curt Thompson. He's a psychiatrist in private practice in Falls Church, Virginia. Check out Curt's really excellent writing. The Soul of Shame, Retelling the Stories We Believe About Ourselves. His latest book is called The Soul of Desire, Discovering the Neuroscience of Longing, Beauty, and Community.
And Curt, you referenced a piece. If people want to read you online, are you posting things online?
Right. There is an article on my website, curtthompsonmd.com, and under resources, and it will be an article called it's Lent, Grief and the Renewal of All Things.
Fabulous. Curt, brother.
Yeah, I really appreciated that.
Always
today,
a pleasure.
Curt.
Thank you so much.
Great to be with you both. Thanks so much.
curtthompsonmd.com. To know more, read more. The notion of vocational calling assumes that there is a caller. And of course, at Grove City College, they know that the caller is the living God. At Grove City, they're committed to helping us pursue God's vision for your life and believe that you will be charged as you find the sense and purpose in the working world. That is at the core of what Grove City does. The caller is there. The faculty, the staff, the students are all involved in that calling.
Mm-hmm. So when a student sees that website and reads that, I'm hoping that there's a change, that there's a difference, thinking that there's there's some force outside my house, my family, my school, who cares about my future, who's invested in my future.
Yep.
And so even if someone doesn't believe in God, is that a comfort to know that with all the options there are in the world, with all the places that I could go to school, with all the things that I could study, is there somebody who can direct me? And the faculty at Grove City College believe that God is that director. And I've seen through my family faculty members who have helped my kids understand that they're listening to God, the faculty is, my kids are listening to God, and they're working together to pursue a big and bold future.
The calling is yours. Grove City College, gcc.edu.
Tens of thousands affected by the toxic water at Camp Lejeune are left with death, cancer, Parkinson's, dementia, birth defects, and other serious illnesses. And along with the harm, so many worries.
My family drank the Camp Lejeune water. What if our health gets worse and we need more financial help?
How do I protect my VA benefits and get the compensation I deserve and need?
The answer is simple. Call James Harris Law, the experienced, trusted law firm that can get you significant compensation while protecting all your VA benefits. We're already fighting for hundreds of Marines, families, and civilians who drank Camp Lejeune water. But if you miss the deadline, you could forever lose your right to the justice you deserve. So call our Camp Lejeune legal helpline now. Now may be your last chance to receive full compensation. Don't delay. Call 800-299-7878. That's 800-299-7878. 800-299-7878.
Discover the magnificence of the Mediterranean with Alistair Begg and our trusted partner, Inspiration Cruises and Tours. 9 life-changing days of powerful worship, Bible study, and history. Sign up now. deeperfaithcruise.com.
Ask Alexa to play the word Pittsburgh to hear us there. We're on your Google speaker too, plus iHeart, TuneIn, and on Odyssey. 101.5 WORD FM, Pittsburgh.
Mostly cloudy skies for tonight. It'll be breezy and mild with a couple of showers. Tonight's low 55. Tomorrow, a couple of morning showers, otherwise mostly cloudy, becoming windier and warm. We'll reach a high of 72. Partly cloudy tomorrow night, winds gradually subsiding. It'll be much colder with a low of 30. Friday, breezy with intervals of clouds and sun. We'll reach a high Friday of 36. With your AccuWeather forecast, I'm Drew Shannon.
Does this make sense?
Does what make sense?
Art. I mean, it's not food. It's not water.
Yeah.
It's not shelter.
Yeah. So you're saying it's not a necessity?
It's not education. It's not a necessity, right?
Yeah.
It's not medicine. It's not...
Right. Vital.
Right.
But
it's not income.
Well, when you look back at like those prehistoric cave drawings, to me that's the answer. That we must create. As we are from the Creator, we ourselves are made to create. So it's a natural extension of breath and heartbeat and life. Art makes perfect sense. What a 3-year-old can do it. Mm-hmm. Someone who's 103.
Rembrandt can do it.
Yeah. It reaches all avenues of life. Yeah. Without art, our world would be much, much less of a wonderful place to live. Undoubtedly. Mm-hmm. Does it make sense to you?
It makes so much sense to me.
I thought you were going to say it doesn't make sense.
I feel like I'm becoming hungrier and hungrier for beautiful things.
Oh.
Not to own them, but to
absorb them.
Yes. Or not even to witness them, maybe?
Every Sunday I drive home from church and drive past the Carnegie Museum and go, oh, the International's going on.
Yeah, I need to get there. Right.
Because I don't want to go in there like in May.
Right, exactly.
Now's the time to go.
Now is the time to go.
Because it's filled with all sorts of wonderful art.
Right. We should do that. Yes, it makes perfect sense. Right, essential sense.
I'm going to go like totally opposite here. This is ridiculous. Does this make sense?
I can't do.
Chairs with wheels. Okay, I was visiting a friend the other day, a very nice, well-appointed living room. I sat down in a sort of a low-slung chair. I went flying across the room and almost out the window. I was like, what? Why are there wheels on your living room furniture? It's not as though I'm going to Albuquerque.
Right.
Why? Just It should be, down so it's comfortable. I don't want to go rolling around places.
It makes you just feel uncertain.
Unstable is how
Exactly. Worried about the future.
I was worried about gravity. Like, what is happening? Does that make sense to you?
It makes all the sense in the world.
What?
Wait, but only in an office situation.
The chairs that we're in right now,
I'm
wheels.
glad.
Yeah, I can move
Moving
around.
I feel good about it.
But not in my living room.
No, I don't think I want chairs in my living room. I mean, I do want chairs in my living room.
But not chairs with wheels.
I don't think I want them to have.
Unless you wanted to roll closer to the art, and then it would make sense.
101.5 WORD. Pittsburgh's favorite Christian music is here on the weekend.
With the best new music.
New music from Jason Crabb, Good Morning Mercy.
Good morning, mercy.
Authority in the Name of Jesus, Stars Go Dim. And Cornerstone from Toby Mac. Celebrating 20 years of bringing Pittsburgh's favorites and the best new music.
101.5 WORD on the weekend.
Hello?
Hey, stranger.
Oh, hi. Thank goodness it's you. I was afraid to answer the phone.
Why? What's up?
The credit card companies are after me. They want me to make payments and the calls never stop.
Ouch. Been there before, but I got help from Trinity Debt Management.
Trinity?
Yeah, I called and right away Trinity contacted my creditors and got my interest rates cut in half. They ended all the late fees and over-limit charges, and they stopped those annoying phone calls.
Bet that was a relief.
Yep. Then they put me on a plan that consolidated my bills into one easy monthly payment. That way, I paid off my debt fast while saving thousands.
Nice.
Trinity even showed me how to plan and meet a monthly budget. So now I'm debt-free for keeps.
Wow. Do you still have their number?
Sure. Here, write this down and call 1-800-990-6976.
Can you repeat that?
1-800-990-6976. That's 1-800-990-6976.
Oil investments involve a high degree of risk and actual results may vary. Oil and natural gas keep going up as the Russia conflict escalates. Get in on the next major oil boom now and help the U.S. with your patriotic investment that can potentially pay you monthly income for up to 20 or more years. That's the sound of a producing oil well and the sound of a smart investment. If you're an SEC accredited investor and have at least $25,000 liquid now, you can take advantage of Encore Energy's projects and a huge tax savings for this year. If you invest in oil and natural gas, you're allowed to write off nearly 100% of your investment in the first year. Goldman Sachs is projecting oil to go up to $100 a barrel, and natural gas is the fuel of the future and trading at record prices. Call 800-287-6691. Encore Energy is a major investor and experienced operator in its core area of operations. Call now and learn how to deduct 100% of your investment and create 20 or more years of potential monthly income. Call 800-287-6691. That's 800-287-6691.
Rhema Christian School is a private school in Moon Township serving children in preschool through 8th grade. Recognized for its commitment to a biblically integrated curriculum that nurtures a Christian worldview and academic excellence, Rhema aims to develop the whole child, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially. Rhema is a true community of families who desire to raise up the next generation of godly leaders, also offering programs for homeschool families, accepting enrollment now for the current school year and opening soon for the 2023-24 school year. Visit rhemachristianschool.org.
When I was in college, I started out as a TV broadcasting major. And because that's, I don't know, I grew up loving Patty Burns. I wanted to be Patty.
Patty?
Yeah, I absolutely
Patty and Daddy.
Patty and Daddy.
She's been gone a long time, Patty.
She has been gone a long time. Isn't that sad?
I'm sure. Lexi has no idea who Patty Burns is. None whatsoever. Not right, Cece? No, forget it.
Patty Burns was on the local TV news. CBS.
KDKA, TV2?
KDKA. And when I was a kid, Lex, she was smart. She was beautiful. I mean, she had her act together.
She was cosmopolitan.
She was cosmopolitan, yes. And I wanted to be cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
Plus, I wanted to be seen as competent, and she was the essence of it. I didn't know her. I never met her, but she just seemed that way to me.
Well, the good news was behind the curtain, she was the same as she was on air.
Oh, well, that's good.
She was much beloved.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but then when I went to college to major in broadcasting, I went to this seminar with a local Pittsburgh media person, and he and I talked afterwards, and he said, you know what? Here's the thing. I wanted to go into sports broadcasting in particular. And at that time,
there
were no women in that. And he said, and he was not discouraging me from doing it, but he was definitely giving me the real story, which was, this is going to be an extremely hard road for you. And you're going to have to move to Podunk, Iowa, to work at a podunk station, and you're going to make, $11,000 a year, and then you're going to apply for another job, and then you're going to move to not quite as podunk, Minnesota, where you're going to do that, and it's going
if you're fortunate.
Exactly. And he said it's just going to be a really hard road. You have to decide if you want to do that. So at that point, I decided I actually didn't want to do that.
Wait, that conversation shocked you enough that you really reconsidered everything? Really?
I did.
Wow.
So I changed. I was still a communications major, but I changed from broadcast focus to public speaking focus. Mm-hmm. So anyway, now that I look back on that, I'm in my 50s now. I look back on those that conversation I had with him, and I am grateful that I did not have a career in television broadcasting.
Really interesting.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because women reach a certain age and their career is over in television.
That's how it's been.
Yes.
Right? Television, film. The only caveat is theater. Women of a certain age will continue to work in theater.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly not in television.
No, because it's all looks,
and for sure not in television broadcasting.
No.
Right.
Although you do see, I mean, there have been some network. Someone posted the other day, God bless her, Andrea Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
And she was, I think, dozing on the air.
Oh, was she really?
Now, Andrea Mitchell's probably 80 years old.
Yeah, she probably is.
Right? There are few always stalwarts who survive, but they are few and far between.
Right. So if you look at the number of men who have survived in television, it's not that women haven't survived. We did have Barbara Walters and Andrea Mitchell. But for every Barbara Walters and Andrea Mitchell, there are 500 or 5,000 men who have survived to that point. Anyway, I bring that up simply because for a woman who is in a career that has to do with presentation, the presentation of self, it's always something that's in the back of your head. You're like, when am I going to age out of this? When are they going to not want me anymore because I'm a woman and I'm a certain age?
Right. Well, we see this here. Someone said years ago, we were at an event, hey, make sure you're all dolled up.
Right.
Right. They didn't look at me and say that. They cared less. I got to show up with a pair of gym trunks on.
Right.
But you, make sure you're all dolled up. Make sure you got your lipstick in place.
CNN's Don Lemon got into trouble over the weekend. This was a conversation that he had online.
I think it's a wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, it'll say, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful.
Boy, he stepped in it there.
He sure did.
He didn't know what he was talking about from the get-go.
So I said it was online. I meant that it was on the air. It was on CNN. And he is returning to work today, but he has to receive formal training in the aftermath of those on-air comments about Nikki Haley.
Wait, what kind of formal training?
It's going to be some training. It was not actually specified, but it will balance accountability with fostering a culture in which people can own, learn, and grow from their mistakes.
So are you the corporate guy who has the training module in place?
I guess
for prime training.
I guess so. So anyway, I bring it up simply because I think that for a lot of men who work in pretty much any sphere, it's good to be reminded of how the situation looks from a woman's point of view.
Mm-hmm. The dynamics,
right?
The balance,
right? And so that thing that Don Lemon said, boy, he really stepped in it.
He did,
but that was no surprise to me. That's no surprise to any woman.
No,
because
it is a surprise in this day and age to say something like. I mean,
it might be a surprise to you.
I don't know. I mean,
it's not a surprise to me. Lex, did that surprise you?
Not in the slightest.
Really?
Right. Mm-hmm.
To hear a guy say that on network television is just ridiculous.
Okay, let's play. Can you play it one more time for us, Lex? Let's hear it again.
Yeah, give me 1 second, please.
Someone clearly out of touch, or walking around with,
But here's the thing, though. What came out of his mouth is what he really thinks.
Yeah, sure, no doubt.
Right. So that is the reality. Whatever he's going to go through in the training that CNN's going to force on him is going to be something that's just going to, make him more careful about what he says.
Here it is.
I think it's the wrong road to go down. She says people, politicians or something are not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What are you talking? Wait.
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, it'll say, if you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful.
No, wait. So he Googled when is a woman in her prime?
If you Google that, I'm like,
when did you ever do that?
I don't know.
Okay, so wait. So is he in his prime?
That's a good question.
Right?
Because I think that the perspective that he would say is that men are in their prime until they're, until they're 80.
Well, there's Joe Biden and Donald Trump. One's 80, one's in his late 70s.
Yep.
One the president, one the recent president.
Yep.
Is that prime?
Angela Merkel led Germany for 18 years.
But what he's saying,
she was certainly in her prime.
Yeah.
But so
Madeleine Albright.
Right. It's not that it never happens. It's not that people never see it. I just think that in most cases, that's what men think.
So he's not talking about intellectual prime. He's talking about physical prime. He's judging Nikki Haley, the presidential candidate, on her looks solely. That's all.
That's exactly right.
That's ridiculous. That's how shallow and short-sighted those comments are, right? So I'm going to vote for Nikki Haley because she's in her prime. All right, there's a good-looking woman. So whatever you want to say about Hillary Clinton, of course, there's a lot to say about that. Hillary Clinton was rejected by the voters because she was past her prime. I mean, that's just...
It is.
In 2023, we're still having this conversation.
I know. And I've worked with you long enough to know that you don't think that.
Of course not.
I really do. I say that sincerely. I know that you don't think that. My husband doesn't think that. But Lex, you feel like it's a majority of men who think that?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a good thing. Let's kind of open each other's minds to think, okay, so this is the reality that women live with. This is what I think. I mean, when I come into work, I work with the most wonderful people here. But regardless of what what part of my life I'm in, I'm always thinking that.
Okay, so here's the difference. I'm sitting here right now, across from you. I'm wearing a T-shirt. I'm wearing a long sleeve T-shirt.
Right.
Your hair's done, your nails are done.
Right.
You're all dressed up. And
it's the way it is.
No one said boo to me today. Hey, you got a T-shirt on. I don't know. I thought we were like beyond this in society, right? Okay, let me, it's a wild hair here. Does porn have something to do with that? I mean,
maybe it does.
We go back to the 70s, Virginia Slims. You've come a long way, baby. Women's lib. And, there's this whole turn of society.
Yeah.
Now we have become a pornified society. And the objectification of women has reached sort of hidden, unparalleled lows and highs. We look at women and we process them immediately in a matter of seconds. Prime, past prime.
Right.
Desirable, not desirable. And that means something still in this day and age. Where guys, look at guys. Look at us.
Right.
More often than not, I'm in a T-shirt. I'm sitting here in a T-shirt.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
Important conversation to have. Coming up next, did archaeologists actually uncover the world's oldest bar?
Oh, really? A watering hole?
Yeah, exactly. And it's older than you can imagine. Stay with us next. It's the Ride Home.
This is an important notice to consumers facing $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or other unsecured debt. You may not be required to pay it all back because there are special programs now in effect that will significantly reduce the amount you will owe if you qualify. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. These programs, which the credit card companies like to keep secret, exist to aid American consumers struggling with overwhelming credit card debt by offering tremendous savings and real debt relief. Accredited Debt Relief has established a special hotline for you to call and learn what savings you qualify for. They've helped qualify consumers with over $1 billion in debt and are A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. So don't wait. Get the relief you need during these hard economic times. For this free information, call the Accredited Debt Relief Hotline now. Call 800-786-2300. 800-786-2300. That's 800-786-2300.
What if I told you can save a baby's life for just $28? Well, it's true. Preborn is a ministry doing just that with the help of people like you by offering free ultrasound sessions to pregnant girls and women who otherwise might choose to end their pregnancy. We know that pregnant girls and women who can see their babies on ultrasound are far more likely to choose life. Your gift today can save babies' lives. Just $28 can give a mother the chance to see the truth of the baby that is growing inside her. $140 can do this for 5 girls and women. Whether you want to save one baby or 5 or hundreds, that opportunity is just a click or a phone call away. Call 833-850-BABY. That's 833-850-2229. Or you can do it safe and secure online by clicking on the Preborn banner at wordfm.com.
Take as little as 3 minutes to see if you could save on motorcycle insurance with Progressive. Come on, you've spent more time than that debating your accessories.
Could use some new riding gloves. Guess I'll go with black leather again. Just seems so basic. Wait, what if I did white leather? People be like, hey, this guy's different. Or they might be like, hey, this guy looks like a butler. Yeah, okay. Black leather it is.
Get a quote in as little as 3 minutes at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Bachman's Roofing and Solar is your local award-winning roofer. Stop waiting. It's time to inspect your roof and protect your home's #1 asset. With no interest and no payment financing for 12 months, Bachman's Roofing is your easy choice for roofing, gutters, and solar. Did you know Bachman's Roofing is one of the #1 GAF solar integrated roofing installers in the USA? Go with Bachman's. Go with solar and install the roof that pays for itself. Call 412-744-8390 or visit bachmansroofing.com.
Archaeologists have recently excavated a site in Iraq dating to around 2700 BC in the ancient Sumerian city-state of Lagash that they think could contain the oldest tavern ever discovered.
Whoa!
They said, we found the remains of a public eatery, the earliest that we are aware of, in one of the first city-states of southern Mesopotamia, said Holly Pittman, a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. An international team of researchers from Penn and the University of Pisa announced the discovery this month. Archaeologists found a 7-room structure featuring an open courtyard with benches and a large open cooking area with a 10-foot-wide mud brick oven. They also discovered a primitive refrigerator known as a zir in Arabic. The device consisted of 2 bottomless clay jars that used evaporation to help cool perishable items. In another room, the team discovered a large quantity of conical bowls that held ready-to-eat food and jars that the archaeologists think contained beer. We're trying to find out how these bowls and jars were created and then stored, but it looks like this is a kind of McDonald's with prepared for food and fast service site.
Is that fascinating how little we've changed?
2,700 years ago. 7 rooms, this structure.
And there's a courtyard, and there's a place to sit around a fire pit?
Yep. I mean, same thing we're doing now.
Crazy?
Yep. It's so cool. They've been looking at these locations since the 1970s, and they use modern systems to get a better idea of where to dig.
Where are you reading from?
This is today's Washington Post. World's oldest bar. Archaeologists find a nearly 5,000-year-old tavern. I mean, people always wanted to gather in community. Community is so key.
And around a fire pit.
Yeah, with drinks and food. Ready to made. Ready, just sitting around, talking, sharing the day.
Tapas.
Talking about art, probably, right? Or being prime, or past your prime.
That's right, exactly. Women saying, it's not the same for you men. It's not.
It's a fascinating world, isn't it?
That really is. If you were going to pick qualities of a restaurant that you were going to hang out in, what would you pick?
Relaxation.
Okay.
Right? A place that's comfortable, that's open, airy. A fire's always nice.
Isn't a fire nice?
Yeah.
I always would favor
gravitate.
a place with a fire.
Who wouldn't, right?
And people 2,700 years ago thought the same thing?
Yep, that's comfortable and hopefully good conversation.
Man, that's crazy.
Hey, thanks for being with us as always. You can find us online as we exit. It's The Ride Home with John and Kathy. Have yourself a great night. See you tomorrow, God willing.
The Ride Home with John and Kathy, a production of Salem Media Group.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. In a recent New York Times piece, guest essayist Heather Kay writes complacently about how her children were, quote, co-parented by the Chinese government, unquote. Ironically, Kay praises the, quote, moral, history, and culture lessons on pulling together for the sake of the nation, unquote. The very elements leftists have pushed hardest to eliminate from American schools. But what's creepiest is her belief in ceding responsibility for her children to the Chinese state. She even considers its censorship a benefit. She doesn't have to monitor the children's internet use. From Hillary Clinton's favorite maxim, it takes a village to raise a child, to MSNBC commentator Melissa Harris Perry insisting we have to break through this idea that kids belong to their parents, the sentiment isn't a new one. It's the old Marxist way. Children belong to the state. But it's un-American and it's repugnant, at least to this mom.
We are everywhere. On your radio at 101.5 WORD-FM Pittsburgh, at wordfm.com, the Word FM mobile app, iHeart, TuneIn, and Odyssey.